All right, so yesterday I introduced some of the terms in genetics about what genetics is, all right? And one of the things that I mentioned was an allele. An allele is a variation that we get for a specific trait. Now, for this allele to present itself, you have to have a variation from mom and a variation from dad. And then when we get those variations, they get expressed, all right? So one of the things I mentioned was that you can have a dominant allele, which is the one that's most common in a population, or you can have a recessive allele. And one of the things that we like to use, because it's something that you can see, is eye color. All right, so we're going to come up with a couple letters here. We're going to take the letter B, capital letter, because that represents the dominant trait, and we're going to say that B equals brown eyes. All right, so if you're a person with brown eyes, you know that you have at least one dominant allele for that specific trait. All right, and we're going to let the little letter B equal blue eyes. All right, and blue eyes is a recessive trait. Now, the only way you're going to have blue eyes is if you have both little letters. All right, which leads me into you can have two combinations to have brown eyes. You can be homozygous dominant, which means you get both dominant alleles, one from mom, one from dad, and you're going to express brown eyes. So this is going to be brown eyes. And you can also be capital letter B, little b is going to give you brown eyes also. All right. So now let's take Mr. Zarumba here. Mr. Zarumba has blue eyes. All right. So if I have, and these are the only kind of genes that I can contribute when I have children. So having a little b, that's all that I have is just the recessive gene. All right, and if I take someone else that has, let's say they have a brown eye, and I don't know, let's say I don't know what this other gene is here. I don't know what the other version of the allele, so I'm going to leave it blank. But they have brown eyes, all right? Now, if I look at this person, I have a probability. Remember, each of these squares represents 25%, and this is where learning mathematics helps you do science, because it's predicting what you could have, all right? So here, as a child, this child might have, they're going to have brown eyes. Even though they got a blue-eye gene and a brown-eye gene, they're going to express brown eyes. And we go across over here, big B, little b. And now down here, we're going to say, okay, I don't know, but here's Mr. Zarumba. Here's Mr. Zarumba. I have blue eyes. And the only way to get blue eyes is if I have both recessive alleles. So now if I know that I'm blue-eyed and I look at my parents, I know that one of my parents had to be a carrier. That means they had to carry along that recessive trait even though they had brown eyes, okay? Which means that, oh, I'm going to put this here. That means this person or this couple could have a possibility of having a brown-eyed child or a blue-eyed child. And this is really cool because there's other traits that you can look at yourself. There's a widow's peak, like where your hair comes into the middle of your forehead. Another one is if you can roll your tongue, where you can take your tongue and go like that, make a curve. If you have that gene, or if you can do that, that means that's a dominant trait. That means you got a dominant allele for that trait from your parents. If you can't do this, there's no training in the world, no practicing, no putting a pencil in your thing, trying to get your tongue, is never going to get you to do that because you don't have the gene for that. So now you can go and look at, like if you have brown eyes, you can kind of predict what your parents actually have as the genes that coded for what you actually express. So I'm hoping that helps you out with a little understanding with genetics.